This is the Tombigbee Tales. I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and sometimes I write about the rest of the state. Tonight, I was having a discussion with my sister and a couple of people I know about uh, where some organ pipes and the organ went that used to be in the MUW um, chapel. The chapel is now closed because it sustained significant storm damage, but the organ and the pipes moved significantly earlier. And that led to a discussion about a very innovative pioneer in higher music education who worked at the W, and her name was Weenona Poindexter, and she lived from 1872 to 1852. And she's the topic of my podcast tonight. There was an editorial in the Dispatch near the end of Poindexter's career that stated she was department founder and first music director of the music department of Mississippi State College for Women. Like a mother hen, she hovered over it through the years, fostering its growth, doing all a director should, and in addition, turning out hundreds of young pianists from her studios. What we know is very little about Wenona's childhood, except that she was born around 1869 to 1870, possibly in Mobile, Alabama. And although we're not clear on it, we're going to just settle on 1869. Her father was William Rice Poindexter, a also well-known college educator in the Mobile area at the time of her birth. In 1870, her father, William, died of yellow fever, and her mother, Addie Brothers Poindexter, moved with Wenona to Mississippi. And Addie herself was a very well-educated woman and took a post teaching piano at what was then the Columbus Female Institute. Even as a young girl, Weenona was known at the Institute, and she was known as Little Miss Poindexter. And she was often involved in some of the commencement entertainment. Following in her mother's footsteps, Weenona began studying piano as a very young girl, and she began to excel. And she went north to continue her studies very seriously at college. And she would graduate from the New England Conservatory in 1884 and quickly return to Mississippi as a mistress of music, and would enter the recently formed Industrial Institute and College, which was created by the Mississippi State Legislature in 1884 for the higher education of women on the site of the former Columbus Female Institute. This, of course, would be the first state-funded institute of higher education for women in the South. When she arrived at the college, she found that the music department was struggling with a very high faculty turnover rate, and they had no standardized curriculum, and private lessons were essentially the only courses being taught. And due to her influences at the New England Conservatory and the particularly German theorists that dictated much of what the conservatory presented for their students, she thought that the understanding of music theory was a crucial part of being a musician, and immediately created a harmony and musical theory course at the new institute. A weekly course on music history and form was also started. By 1905, both theory and history were required classes for music studies at the college. This was at a time when music education for women, particularly in the South, was primarily learning to sing folk songs and play simple hymns from old hymnals on the keyboard for entertainment. Weenona was establishing an exacting music department for women who wanted to seriously study the classics. In the Industrial Institute and College class catalog of 1894-1895, she stated that, quote, "In the lessons on form, blackboard illustrations are given showing how the single tones are combined into figures, figures into phrases, phrases into periods, and periods into complete movements. An analysis of the smaller forms is required from students of 1 year's study. The object of the class is to make of our pupils musicians and not mere performers. Well, after instituting this music theory and system of history classes, Poindexter would turn her attention to student recruitment because at the time only 55 students were studying voice or piano. This was 1895. Perhaps the most successful recruitment activities were held at her personal apartment. On Saturday afternoon, students would gather to hear her talk about her days at the New England Conservatory. Having extensive biographical knowledge about the lives of famous composers, Weenona also used these Saturday afternoons to share stories about composers, thus creating impromptu music history lessons. She also would go to organize the Bach Society, which provided students with additional performance opportunities, and new Bach Society members were carefully chosen by Wenona and other members of the existing organization, and they sought out the most musically talented students. She also established the musical union for students not eligible for membership in the Bach Society. And the musical union would offer these less experienced musicians, or those who were not exactly in the music department, but who wanted to perform in choirs and instrumental groups, an opportunity. These recruitment efforts quickly attracted new students, and the department was self-sufficient within 1 year of Poindexter's arrival in 1895. In a report to the college president in 1895, Poindexter's desire for music to be considered as an area of serious study can be readily seen. The demand for teachers is increasing, she states, as you readily perceive from the number of applications that come to you for teachers who must not only be competent to give instruction in the literary branches, but in music also. Some of our girls fail to obtain lucrative positions on account of not having a knowledge of music, and unfortunately, it has not been recognized as a factor of education in the college or even given a place as an industrial art. We do not ask for an appropriation that music may be given free, but earnestly request that students who expect to make music their vocation may be permitted to take it as an industry and excused from any other industrial study. The number of students in the music department would reach 150 by 1801. Excuse me, by 1901. Many of these students were enrolled in the normal department that Poindexter had created 2 years earlier. The normal department was one of the first of its kind in the country to require 1 year of supervised teaching in order to graduate as a music teacher. Yes, they went through a professional evaluation, something new to the time. By 1903, the department no longer had enough space because enrollment had grown to 211 students. This wasn't a problem, but became one that at one point students' dormitory rooms were also used as practice rooms. Miss Maddie Brown, the head of the vocal department, informed the president of the college that teachers' studios were spread out over 4 buildings and that even the college parlor was being used as a practice room. College President Kincannon quickly addressed these issues by writing a letter to the legislature, and the legislature would provide $40,000, the equivalent of today of about $900,000, toward the construction of a new music building. Weenona was personally involved in almost all aspects of the planning of the building, even breaking ground for it and laying the first brick. The structure would be completed in 1905 at a cost of over $95,000, which today would be the equivalent of a little over $2 million. The new building contained 67 practice rooms, 15 teacher studios, and a concert hall that seated 500. Poindexter began a now famous concert series there in 1905 at the opening, with the inaugural event including an appearance of the famous pianist Ignacy Paderewski. No money from the university was used to fund this event. Instead, she used her own money to bring this Polish pianist to campus and then donated over $1,000, which is roughly about $22,000 today, in profits from this event to a fund to be used to bring in more well-known musicians to the campus. This would become a tradition going forward, even into my own childhood. In 1910, the state legislature voted to officially change the institute's name from the Institute to the Mississippi State College for Women, what we here in Columbus know as MSCW. Due to Poindexter's influence, the music department had continued to grow to a population of 900 students by that same year. So in 1910, an article titled One Woman's Musical Influence, How Weenona Poindexter Developed a Music Department at the Mississippi State College for Women, appeared in Musical America magazine and noted that in 1894, the organized musical efforts of any importance in the South were woefully few. But now that this section of America holds the record for the most rapid musical development. With an enrollment of over 1,000 students now, the department now consisted of 13 full-time faculty, with Poindexter serving as head of the department. Poindexter requested and received 40 new pianos for the Department of Music in 1915. Now, with suitable facilities and an adequate number of pianos, Poindexter focused on refining the teaching and standards for the piano program. By 1920, the music diploma was listed as the conservatory course. The curriculum expanded by requiring 2 years of harmony, theory, and music history. Requirements for pianists to enter at the freshman level included the Czerny studies, I'm sure I'm butchering that, Czerny, Opus 299, 6 memorized 2-part Bach inventions, all major and harmonic minor scales, and the first movement of a sonatina of the student's choice. Requirements for the 4 years of study were quite demanding and included all of Bach's 3-part inventions in the freshman year. Requirements for the senior year included selections from the 32 Beethoven sonatas and the entire Well-Tempered Clavier by Johann Sebastian Bach. Each student was also required to perform a senior recital. Now, it was similarly challenging curriculum for voice and stringed instrument students as well. Poindexter, uncompromising as always, also established a preparatory department for students who were not yet ready to enter the music program as freshmen. Then the Great Depression struck, and that was obviously putting significant pressure on the entire country, and MSCW did not escape the hardship either. By 1931, the college had no money to pay faculty salaries. So of the 6 remaining teachers, some even had to live in the practice rooms on the 4th floor of the music hall. However, the music department still remained self-sufficient due to the small music fees assessed to each student. The music department, though struggling, was still successful, and in 1932, the college instituted a Bachelor of Science in Music degree in voice, piano, violin, or public school teaching. Their curriculum reflected many innovations in higher music education. In 1932, the music department was also seeking accreditation, which it would receive from the National Association Schools of Music 2 years later. Poindexter's dream of forming a respected music school for women in the South had finally come true. Now, in the last years of her life, she focused on her enthusiasm for teaching. In 1945, she retired from a teaching and administrative career with the W that had spanned over 40 years. In 1947, Mississippi State College for Women honored Poindexter by officially changing the name of the building from Music Hall to Poindexter Hall. This is according to a newspaper article. Miss Poindexter loved the building that bore her name so much that she would visit it every day just to see how it was holding up. When she received word that Shattuck Hall, which is next door to Poindexter, had caught on fire, she became hysterical and called an ambulance to come pick her up and place her in the building so that someone would be forced to save the building if the fire should spread to Poindexter. Poindexter Hall remains in use today and has a National Historic Site rating. Poindexter remained close to the W until her death in 1956 at the age of 87. She was clearly a woman of importance and significant in establishing a music college in the South for women where they could study and get a fine degree in the music arts. I want to thank you for coming on my little tour of Columbus, Mississippi, and learning about Weenona Poindexter of Poindexter Hall and Mississippi State College for Women, now Mississippi University for Women. Until next time.